I looked at what was going on, and these gastroenterologists, medical doctors who were taking care of GI disease, I saw them in the corner over there looking with scopes into people's stomach. It was a brand new thing called endoscopy. I said, you know what? That is so great. I am going to do that for 3 months. No night call. I am going to just relax. So I signed up for it a few months ahead. A week before, I called the head of gastroenterology at University Hospital. His name was Harvey Dworkin. And I said, Dr. Dworkin, I'd like to come in and tell me what time and where to show up. And he goes, I made a mistake. We're not training any surgeons to do endoscopy. Forget about it. Now my interest was piqued. So I went to my head of general surgery, his name Charlie Hubei, and I told him this story. I said, Dr. Hubei, they just told me I can't touch the scope. He said, well, let me look into this. So he found a guy who he knew, who was in Canton, Ohio, a little town 60 miles south of here, named Jim King. Well, I spent actually almost 5 months with him, and I come back.
When I finished my endoscopic training in 1974, I had done over 500 cases with Jim King, and I came back to the institution where I trained, and I said, I'd like to participate in training residents. And they said to me, no, surgeons aren't supposed to do endoscopy here. We don't want any surgeons using our instruments. So I went to my chief of surgery. I said, Dr. Holden, would you buy me an instrument? He said, I'd love to, but we don't have any funds. I was dead.
So I'm at a family party, and I'm telling this story to her family, just off the cuff. And her mother, who was sitting there listening, calls me the next time I'm on call in the hospital.
And then I got a phone call around Christmas time in 1974 from my mother-in-law, and she said, go out and buy a scope and a light source and show them what you can do. The rest is history. That teaches two things, two lessons. Number one, don't ever tell anybody that they can't play football because the ball belongs to you. And number two, there's nobody who'll support you like your own family.
That changed my life, because from that moment on, I was able to come in anytime I was called, and the medical doctors started calling me. The private medical doctors would call me. There was an attending surgeon who would come in and stand behind me so he could collect the insurance and sign the papers. But by the end of when I finished my residency 2 years later, they weren't ever calling the gastroenterologists anymore. I had totally put them out of business, because I would come any time of the day or night. I kept the scope in the trunk of my car. Couldn't do that anymore. And the chairman of the department said, we'll hire you to be the head of this new area of surgical endoscopy. And that was a change in the whole career. So I joined the university hospitals. And I was, by the way, 2 years later, he called me up. He said, I have money now to give you a grant to pay for that scope. I said, oh, thank you. Did I give it back to my mother-in-law? No, I went and bought another scope to do a specialized procedure, ERCP. So I was training in endoscopy with Jim King in 1974. And we were doing these colonoscopies, and we were seeing polyps, the kind you don't even see anymore because nobody had taken them out before. And we would take them out. Some of them would come back cancer. And I would say, well, Jim was a gastroenterologist. How does a surgeon know where to take out that piece, that part of the colon, if you don't have a place to tell them where it was? Well, I tell them sigmoid colon, he say, or right colon, but he said, we don't have an exact place. So I started reading some articles from the literature, and I'm not going to go into them, about people who are on the inside just dabbing the colon with India ink. I said, well, wait, what if we just inject it? So my first purchase was a needle that they made. It was reusable then. The same needle now is disposable. It was $160, my first purchase. And I went to the bookstore and I bought India ink off the shelf, put it in the syringe. No, there were no IRBs in those days, no permissions. We just injected it submucosally right where the polyp had been. And then he said to me, this was in Canton. We waited about a month. The guy had a cancer. We went back to resect the area. It was a few weeks. And I went to Alliance, Ohio, and I followed. They opened the guy up. I remember the surgeon's name. And we looked in, and there was a spot where it was. Took photographs of it and published it. Endoscopic marking of colonic lesions still used today. Tolga Aram and I met when I went to the Cleveland Clinic in Florida. And it was sort of interesting because I didn't know what to expect from the gastroenterology department in Florida when I went down there as a member of the Cleveland Clinic staff. And I think I went down there because it would be a nice place to visit periodically because I had a house in Florida. And I went to meet them and they said, would you give us some classes and teach us how to do this stuff you're doing? And the one who really stuck to it was Tolga. And we became so attached, and I'm sort of like a dad to him, I think. He is a fabulous technician, a superb doctor, and a great friend. And when we go down there, even if I don't have a chance to work with him, we get together for a meal. So Tolga Aram is a superb leader, and he's now currently not only the chief of endoscopy, but the chief of gastroenterology down there.
Hello, Jeff. I am humbled to be a part of this gathering, honoring your decades of service to humanity and celebrating the legacy of innovations that you leave behind. You are the personification of the brand of nurturing kindness that makes the world a better place. You have been and still are an inspiration to us in Cleveland Clinic, Florida. Thank you for everything that you have done to bring our unit to the next level. Whatever comes next for you, may it bring you the same joy and fulfillment as you brought us. Working with you over the years, I have come to believe that you can do anything. And you have done almost everything in your career. But I have to say that I'm quite skeptical of one thing, your ability to retire. Which may be the best news for us who want to continue to work with you and learn from you. We are looking forward to that, actually. Again, congratulations. We love you.